Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips. My name is Julian, and in today's episode, we're going to be discussing the injury updates for Week 10 of the fantasy hockey season. It's a doozy right now. There are a lot of players on the COVID list, so strap yourself in. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and follow me on Twitter at Fantasy Tips. I'm constantly posting updates there on Twitter, so definitely follow me there because it'll be able to help you win each and every week of the season. Now let's jump right into it, and let's start with the players who were just recently added into COVID protocol. Players listed on the screen have just been added into COVID protocol over the last couple of days. These players are Craig Smith, Brad Marchand of the Boston Bruins, Elise Lindholm, Sean Monahan, Andrew Mangiapane of the Calgary Flames, Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov, and Stahl of the Carolina Hurricanes, Devon Taves of the Colorado Avalanche, and Matthew Barzal of the New York Islanders. Expect these guys to all be out about 10 days unless it's a false positive, in which case they could be back as of next game, but it's not super likely. So first on my actual injury report list is Adam Henrique, and we haven't heard a whole lot about Adam Henrique's injury, but he is a first-line player with Getzlaf and Terry, and he's definitely being missed right now. He could be back as soon as next game. As of this point, I think that his injury is day-to-day, so as soon as he's ready, he will join the lineup. Not much more to report than that. Then I have Jacob Chychrun of the Arizona Coyotes, and he won't play this week at the very minimum. Could be back as soon as next week, but the coaches aren't saying a whole lot. He's going to miss this week. He's probably going to miss most of next week. And if you need someone to replace him, Shayne Gostisbehere, if he's available, is definitely a good replacement. Plays top power play in Arizona. Good person to add right now. Then let's jump into some Buffalo Sabres goalies with Craig Anderson and Dustin Tokarski. Craig Anderson is out pretty long term. Tokarski, he's still not traveling with the team, so likely will miss all of the games this week at the very least. He's on the COVID IR right now. If you need someone to replace them, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen seems to be getting the bulk of the starts for Buffalo right now, and he's playing pretty well. Next is Alex Tuch, who's been out the entire year. He's a pretty good player, got traded to Buffalo in that Jack Eichel deal, and he's officially week to week now. He's probably going to be back around the end of January, and I'd probably consider picking him up around that. I'm not going to go and pick him up that much earlier because I don't think he's going to do that well on a Buffalo team. And if you're wondering about Casey Mittelstadt, he had surgery, so drop him from your team. He's probably not going to be back until near the end of the season. Not worth holding him on your IR. Next, I have Gabriel Landeskog, who's going to be out for 2 weeks. So basically, he's going to return right after that Christmas break. He should be back first game after the Christmas break. Until then, guys, Andrei Burakovsky is playing on that top line with McKinnon and Rantanen. That's a pretty good place to be for Burakovsky. He's doing really well, scored a hat trick the other night. Then I have Adam Boqvist of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's missing at least a week with an upper body injury, so he's not going to play this week. Could possibly return next week, but they're not saying a whole lot about the injury. Until then, guys, if you want a Columbus defenseman, Jake Bean is someone who's getting second power play time and hasn't looked too bad this year. Not my favorite option, though. Then I have Patrik Laine, who was given a timetable of 4 to 6 weeks to heal up. The end of that window was December 15th, which is the day I'm recording this, and he's still not ready to return. But the good thing is that he's finally returned to practice with his team, so he should be back quite shortly. Next is Roope Hintz of the Dallas Stars, and at first his ailment didn't look too serious. He's just sick with a non-COVID related illness. I honestly thought he was going to be back on Tuesday, but they put him on IR. It seems like it's a bit more serious of a sickness. Maybe he has the flu or something. He could potentially be back as early as Friday's game for Dallas. So yes, they put him on IR, but it's a retroactive, so he could be back for Friday, so don't worry too much about that. Next is Zach Hyman. I don't think his injury is too serious either. It's day-to-day. He's not going to miss too much time. I thought he could possibly come back on Tuesday night. That didn't end up happening, but he could be back as soon as Edmonton's next game on Thursday. Next is Mike Smith. And on November 19th, they gave him a 2 to 3 week timetable to return from his finger injury. Now, the 3-week timetable brought him to December 17th, which is in 2 days from when I'm recording this. It seems like he's very close to a return and could possibly return as of Edmonton's next game, December 16th. Probably not, though. Might take another couple games, but he's very, very close to returning. Next is Aleksander Barkov, and he was recently re-added to IR after being injured in his first game back from injury. Not great for Barkov owners. It kind of sucks, but it looks like this injury is not super serious, and he could potentially be back by Florida's next game on Thursday. I'm crossing my fingers that that is the case. All right, now I have 4 Montreal Canadiens, and Dvorak is just day-to-day with a lower body injury. Nothing's too serious. Ryan Poehling seems to be taking a lot of face-offs now in Montreal, playing second or third line, whatever you want to call Poehling's line. Probably not someone I'd really consider for fantasy unless you're in a really, really deep league. But he's someone who is getting decent ice time right now. Then I got Carey Price, who now is skating in full equipment, which is really great. But per Dominic Ducharme, the Habs head coach, he's not going to be returning until after the Christmas break, so don't expect him back for another couple of weeks at the very least. Jake Allen is someone who's going to be getting all the starts in Montreal until then. Then Josh Anderson is out 2 to 4 weeks as of December 2nd, so he could return any time between the 16th and the 30th, so he should be back before the new year. If not, he'll be back right when the new year starts, so nothing too bad there. Jonathan Drouin is getting elevated ice time right now with Josh Anderson gone. Then I have Tyler Toffoli out 8 weeks as of December 11th due to some hand surgery, which would make him eligible to return around February 5th, but the Olympic break is from February 2nd to February 22nd, so he won't be back until the end of February, so don't expect him to be back before the end of February. He's droppable if you need to drop him, if you don't have the IR space. Toffoli hasn't been that amazing this year anyway, so don't feel too bad if you need to drop him. Then I have Matt Duchene, who's day-to-day, doesn't seem too serious, could be back as soon as the Preds' next game on Thursday. If he's not, Philip Tomasino is playing on the top line right now in Nashville, has a decent opportunity to put up some points. Next is Nico Hischier on the COVID protocol and should miss this week at the very least. He could be back next week at some point. Then I have Jonathan Bernier, and there is some concern about his long-term health because of a hip problem. So he's going to see doctors, he's going to get some second opinions, and he could potentially be out long-term. So if you have Jonathan Bernier, you can hold him for now until you get the update, but it's not looking great for his long-term status. Then I have Ryan Pulock, who was supposed to be out 4 to 6 weeks as of November 17th, which would be a return from December 15th to 29th, so should be back before the new year at some point. Next I have Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers, and it looks like he's not going to be quite ready this week, but could definitely be ready by next week to return to that starting job in New York. Then there's nothing new on Ryan Ellis, which is why I don't have him here. He's still going to be ready around December 30th. Then I have Joel Farabee, who's week to week, but recently participated in the Flyers practice, so he could be back sooner than later. If you need someone on the Flyers who's producing right now, Travis Konechny is someone to grab. Then I have Bryan Rust of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he's still week to week, but it looks like he's making some progress. He's skating now, which is good sign, so he could potentially be back before the end of the year. Next is Evgeni Malkin. He's also been taking part in some practice. He's been doing some power play work, been skating on his own a little bit. Really, really good signs. Malkin could definitely be back before the end of the year. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Expect him back in your lineup within the next couple weeks. Next is Yanni Gourde, was placed in the COVID protocol on Saturday. Should miss at least this week. Should be back at some point next week. Next, I have David Perron of the St. Louis Blues, and he was recently added to LTIR, and that doesn't really mean much. It just means that he's going to miss the rest of this week, so he could be back as soon as next week, but they're not giving us too much details on this injury. I'm expecting him to be back next week, though. Next is Brayden Schenn, was put on IR, so won't play for 7 days, but the injury doesn't seem too serious, although the Blues really don't give a lot of injury updates, so we don't really know. But until then, guys, if you need a centerman on St. Louis, Ivan Barbashev is someone who's playing pretty well right now. Next is Robert Thomas, and like I said before, guys, the Blues don't give a lot of updates on their injuries, so all we know right now is that he's eligible to come back from injury as soon as he's ready, so that doesn't really mean much. So I think he's going to be back soon. He's been out for a little while at this point, but we don't really know. Next is Jordan Binnington, who's been on COVID protocol for a little while at this point. He should be back, though, either Friday or Sunday. They're not going to rush him back, though, because Charlie Lindgren has been absolutely great as the backup in St. Louis, because Husso is also out right now. There's Erik Cernak, and he's week to week, so feel free to drop this guy. He's not that useful that you have to keep him on your IR+. Unless you have the room, I guess you might as well do so. Next is Nikita Kucherov, and he could be back towards the end of the year, but more likely will be back early January. He was recently spotted at morning skate, so looks like he's getting closer and closer to a return. Next is Brayden Point, who is supposed to be out 4 to 6 weeks as of November 23rd, so that means he's going to be back some point between December 21st and January 4th. Next is Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs, expected to miss 3 to 4 weeks as of December 7th, which probably means that he won't be ready until January. Early January, though, so he shouldn't be out too much longer. Next is Martinez, and apparently he's been making slow progress but likely he has concussion, so we don't know how long it's going to really take for him to get over it. Concussions are weird things like that. We don't really know how long it's going to take. Sometimes it just takes a couple days, and sometimes it takes a few weeks, and Martinez looks like he's going to be on the long end of that spectrum. Unfortunately, until he comes back, Nicklas Backstrom has been doing really great on the first pairing in Vegas. Next is Jack Eichel, and looks like he's finally skating. He underwent successful surgery in November, so he's not expected to be back until late February, and now people are saying that he could potentially be back for the Olympics. It's possible. The Olympics are in late February, so Jack Eichel could be making his return around then. Next is Niklas Backstrom, and it looks like he's just about ready to make his season debut. He's been practicing basically in full. He looks really encouraging right now, so Nick Backstrom looks like he's going to be ready to make his season debut. Maybe next game, maybe the game after, but it won't be much longer than that. Next is Tom Wilson. He's officially day-to-day, but they're really not giving a whole lot of updates on this injury. So all we know is that he's not practicing as of right now, so it might be a few more games that he's out for. But as right now, we don't really know how serious his injury is. Doesn't seem to be too serious, or they probably would tell us. Next is Garnet Hathaway, and he's been in COVID protocol for a good while now, so he's eligible to be activated from COVID protocol whenever he's ready. Should be pretty soon, hopefully. Next is Blake Wheeler, and he's expected to be out of the lineup for quite a few weeks. Well, because of that, it looks like Paul Stastny is going to benefit tremendously from this injury. He's going to be now a top 6 guy in Winnipeg, and because of that, he has some fantasy value. So if you have Wheeler, put him on your IR plus, and go ahead and grab Paul Stastny. You should be able to do pretty decently and a really good top 6 in Winnipeg. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Hope you guys enjoyed the content today, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.